morning. We're going to start this meeting, the Wilmington City Council. It's agenda briefing. I'm going to have roll call now. Mayor Pro Tem, I know, is on his way here. Mr. Eisenbark, are you here? Mr. Spears, are you here?
I'm here.
You here? Ms. Andrews, you here?
Here.
Mr. Joyner, you're here?
Here.
And I am here, so everybody's here and accounted for. C1 is approval of the minutes. C2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a law enforcement mental health and wellness act grant in the amount of $200,000. C3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a FEMA fire prevention and safety grant in the amount of $89,571. C4 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of equipment for 34 police vehicles from Mobile Communications America Incorporated of Mooresville, North Carolina for $382,271. Then PH1 is an ordinance amending the official zoning maps of the city to rezone property containing 0.374 of an acre of land located at 1124 Flora Parkway from O&I CD Office and Institutional Conditional District and O&I Office and Institutional District, O&I CD Office and Institutional District, Conditional District for Commercial District Mixed Use Development. Then PH2 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 2.98 acres of land located at 204 and 206 North Kerr Avenue from R5 CD Medium Density Mixed Residential Conditional District and O&I CD Office and Institutional Conditional District to R5 CD Medium Density Mixed Residential Conditional District for a 30-unit townhome development. Then ordinances, 01 is an ordinance making supplemental appropriations in the amount of $43,694 from committed revenues funds for the Live Oak Bank Pavilion at Riverfront Park, Hugh Morton Amphitheater, and Althea Gibson Tennis Complex for maintenance and improvements at the facilities. And then resolutions is R1, resolution authorizing the city attorney and city manager to execute any and all documents to amend the transfer of previously owned city property located at 905 North 10th Street to New Hanover County. And that concludes this agenda.
Mr. Mayor, we don't have any presentations for you this morning. I just did want to call to your attention that the county manager, the county attorney, the county finance officer, and the assistant county attorney are all here if you need to ask questions about item R1. They'll also be present tomorrow night.
Okay. Are there any questions from council? Well, Chris, you want to come up just for a second? I know that this has come a little sticky.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Obviously, when we transferred the property to the county at the time, I think it was back in 2022.
Yes, sir.
We didn't have really a formalized plan at the time, and we said we would go ahead and transfer the property. We didn't have a lot of information. The question that came back from within council at that time when we were debating or discussing the issue was that in the event that this does not happen, whatever you folks were going to do with it at that time, that the property would revert back to the city of Wilmington, which is currently what's in the thing now, which is a reverter clause. And of course, I know now that y'all have gotten more details as to how this thing is going to materialize and how you're going to move forward with it. I understand that, excuse me, some of the commissioners had some concerns in respect to protecting their position in regards to the investment that the county is going to be making into this deal. And the city obviously also has its responsibility to protect the taxpayers from the city of Wilmington as to if we give this property and something does happen and it reverts back to the county, is there a way that in respect to the asset that the city's putting forward that we as a city could be compensated back at that point in time if it were to happen? And I'll just kind of throw it back to you on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to the council. Thank you all for having us today, and we look forward to being with you at your council meeting tomorrow evening. Mr. Mayor, you described the transaction and I think the conditions around what led to it taking the form that it did, exactly spot on. So the ask that I've been directed to make is, would the city council consider eliminating the reversion clause? But I understand if that's problematic, there are any other number of options that perhaps the council may identify that I'm more than happy to take back to the county commission and get their consensus and/or approval. I know there will be no action made today, but if the council were to express where it thought it was going to go, the county does have a commission meeting this evening, and I would be glad to make that known to them and get clarity from the board. The only thing they authorized me, however, to ask for 2 weeks ago was to eliminate the reverter clause or to work out with the city staff the fact that at the end of the day, the county would have title, I guess unencumbered perhaps would be the right way to describe it, for the purposes of this grocery store. But I am happy to take any alternative ideas back to the board.
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, this is a great opportunity because you have the endowment involved, you have the county involved, and you have the city. So this is about as communitarian as you can get in respect to making this a reality. I think that if we can work out in respect to the asset that we are giving as a city, that in the event something were to happen and it reverts back to the county, that whether we use it for a nonprofit of some sort, whether it be if you were to sell the property, a portion of the sale of the property based on what maybe the land value is, the appraised value is, would be used for something that the city and the county jointly support, like a homeless endeavor or something that has to do with opioids or something that has to do with the homeless, something that we jointly currently support together. That would be, I guess, an avenue, a road that I would like to explore more of as to how do we protect that investment coming back from the city's perspective if it comes back to the county.
Yes, sir, and I should say that I did make known to the board, because the city manager and I had the discussion early on, that perhaps one of the options would be if, and I think if is the operative word, if the county ever needed to move out of the grocery store business, and it's not the policy intention of anyone for that to happen, but if that happened and the property were sold, that the value of the land transaction would be transferred to the city in the future. I suggested that as an alternative to the board. No one said otherwise. And I did that in writing, certainly not conducting county business, but made that as an option available to the board as perhaps something to discuss. Okay. So I certainly believe, in the absence of any commissioner expressing individually something in opposition to what I shared, I would like to believe that something, Mr. Mayor, as you described, also would be a reasonable option for the board to consider.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Questions?
I just had a comment. In going back and looking at the minutes from our meeting in 2022, we were very clear, we were crystal clear as to the intent of the resolution. In fact, myself and Councilmember Anderson drilled down on that particular portion. And I asked the question about the property being improved, and your answer was, as long as it was a grocery store, it would remain status quo. Otherwise, it would revert back to the county. I said, fine, and then Councilmember Spears made a motion, and it passed unanimously. So with whatever we come up with between our body and your body, I want to dot all the I's and cross all the T's, because, Chris, we were just as clear as a bell, and I don't know how it's gone 2 years through legal and your eyes and the commission's eyes, and then it comes up at the 11th hour that we don't want that. And also, I asked the question that night, Tony, had the property been appraised, and you said we had not appraised it yet. Has that been done?
No, sir, it has not been appraised.
Now, don't you think it's time?
Pardon me?
Don't you think it's time?
If the council would like to have it appraised, we'll be glad to.
You said you were going to have it appraised then.
Yes, sir, I will have that done.
So all I see is $113,000, which is a tax value. We don't deal in tax values in the real world. That's some number. It's not current. And appraisals don't even last 60 days in this market. So I just want to be real clear as to what we're doing, because we send a lot of money over to the county with our taxpayer dollars, and we don't have any control over how you spend it. The money that we generate and spend here comes from our people, not from people outside in the unincorporated area. So I want to be real clear as to how this is going to transact, because 5 years is the blink of an eye. in this world. So as long as it stays a nonprofit, if a grocery chain comes to town and wants to buy it from you, the deal's off. The current appraised value of the property and whatever the land value is comes back to the city. And I'd also like for everybody to understand that this is not just a county thing. You guys are doing it, but a lot of that money is coming from our city taxpayers, and they're not getting any credit for it. People ask me all the time, why didn't the city get involved in this thing? I said, we are involved. So those are my comments.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, Chris.
Thank you.
Mr. Barnett?
Oh, no, I disagree totally with what has already been said. And we're definitely in favor of making sure that the north side has a grocery store. You know, that's just without any question.
Absolutely.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Wait, Mr. Spears, and then I'm going to go to you, Mr. Waddell was here. I'm going to go to you next, sir. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
I would, certainly concur with Mayor Pro Tem Barnett. I think the council's already demonstrated that it's important to this council that and previous councils that we have a grocery store in the north side, and this cooperative is important to the entire community. Bit of clarity, maybe for my edification, and this thing's got a lot of traction publicly. The county owns the property now.
Yes, sir.
Correct. So when was it actually transferred? So we deliberated at council. Councilman Rivenbark and Councilman Anderson at the time asked the pointed questions of what happens, and I think that was a large catalyst to the decision we were gonna make at the time. And then to recap, I believe Councilmember Spears made a motion, seconded by then Councilmember Barnett, and it was unanimously approved to move forward with what was proposed. So when did the actual transaction occur with the reversion clause that's now the sticking point?
So, Councilperson, I hope I'm answering your question, probably in more words than you asked, though. As I recall, the city council agreed to transfer the parcel to the county in June or July of 2022. The county accepted that transfer in August of 2022, and I believe the deed was executed in the fall of 2022.
Actually, in November, I believe.
November 2022 is how long the county's owned the property. And, okay. And then just for further clarification, an option that you see a clear path for between the city and the county would be that if it was to ever be utilized as something other than a grocery store, that the then tax value of the land would be paid back to the city?
Yes, sir.
That's an option.
And I have expressed that as an option for the board to consider, and again, no one has disagreed individually. Okay. And that is something very early on after the board's directive to me that the city manager and I talked about.
Well, that seems reasonable, and certainly something, as long as the i's are dotted and t's are crossed, and we, have a chance to review it in a legal, and y'all's legal signs off
Yes,
on
sir.
it, of course. One other question, because this has been kind of a quick turnaround for us up here at the council. And typically, when we have matters involving real estate transactions and sensitive discussions, we have the opportunity to have those in closed session. Does state statute warrant that in this case? And if so, what's the amount of time that we would have that we need to notice it?
You wouldn't necessarily have to notice a closed session necessarily if you were going to have one, but the closed sessions are usually for the acquisition of real property and not the sale of real property.
Well, we're going to be reacquiring it, potentially.
We
Correct
may
me
or-
if I'm wrong, that you would deed it back to the city. We would make a change to the reversion clause, and then we would deed it back to the county.
Mr. Waddell, I don't have the answer to that. I believe our county attorney may see a path different than that, but we are here making an ask of you, and we will follow whatever path you outline.
If I may, I think that that's one option. I think that there are probably some other options as well, and we just, the county attorney and I have just not had an opportunity to discuss those as to what we might be able to do. There may be a way that we can change that reverter clause or eliminate it without having to reacquire the property. We just haven't had a chance to flesh that out yet.
So would we or would we not be able to have a closed session if this body decided it was necessary?
I don't see a basis at this point for a closed session.
Okay.
As far as that goes. I don't think it would go towards the reacquiring of property necessarily.
And again, this has just been a real truncated timeline for the council, and why I'm saying, well, it would be nice to have a full discussion. Maybe we do that tomorrow night and then bring something back. But I appreciate you being here and having,
Yes, sir.
a little bit of discussion now.
And what we could do certainly is that the county attorney and I could have those discussions about the potential options for doing that, and then I could meet with a couple of members of council individually and answer any of your questions as well.
Okay. Mr. Spears?
So I'm just gonna be honest. I don't like this at all, Mr. Kudre. It just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up because it seems like something is awry. If we wanted to produce a grocery store, if you all wanted to produce a grocery store on the north side, then that's what would happen. And so we wouldn't talk about the possibility of a grocery store not being delivered and then the city of Wilmington not getting our land back, because that's the deal that we made. And as Councilman Rivenbark said, we were very clear about what we wanted. So the thing that makes me uneasy is now, and I don't know where it came from, but some commissioners are not okay with that. And let's be honest, the city council and the New Hanover County commissioners don't have the best rapport when it comes to stuff like this. We're always at odds about who does what and who benefits from this and who does that. So let's just be clear about it. I am adamantly opposed to, if this deal doesn't go through, I don't want us to give the county the land. I want the land to come back to us for us to do whatever we deem that's best possible for that land.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Ms. Meredith, you said that you have not had an opportunity to talk to the county's lawyer, but you seem to believe that if you talk, you guys sit down and talk, that you guys could come up with some, hearing what we are saying and what we want, you'll be able to kind of clear that up for us.
We'd be able to come up with a mechanism to get done whatever council wants us to do, a legal mechanism right now. We've both researched that issue ourselves, but we haven't gotten together to figure out what the best way would be to legally get it done. But I'm certain that whatever council and the commissioners agree on doing, that we can get together and figure out the legal way to do that.
And are you saying then that you could kind of like get together between now and tomorrow and share that information with us, or is that?
As to what the legal way to do it would be?
Yes.
Yes, sir, I feel like we could.
Okay,
Ms. Rumbar?
go to work.
Bring it all together, Chris. We want that grocery store. I mean, that's been high on the list for a long time, and this is a golden opportunity. The only thing that I'm pushing for, and I'll continue to push for, is in the event that it goes away, or at the end of 5 years, and I know y'all are going to subsidize some of it, and it goes away and it's sold to a private entity, whatever the appraised value of the land portion of that improvement is, comes back to the city. That's it. We're just trying to protect our city taxpayers. That's all. Other than that, I'm ready to move forward, and I'm sure the two attorneys can get together and come up with some kind of a plan. Certainly understand Mr. Spears' reticence on this, but I think at the same time, he wants to see a grocery store too. I'm not speaking for him, but I would think that he would really like to see that desert become an oasis.
So, Chris, you can just come, you're going to have your attorneys, county, meet with Meredith and our team there and managers to get together, and then hopefully come up with, I guess, a series of options that we could take a look at, and then you're going to report back to your board today about this very meeting that we had tonight. I think we all want to see this happen. We just want to make certain that the last piece of this is in that the portion that we're giving as a city is that in the event that the grocery store goes away, that some compensation or some value is applied towards something that we either comes back to the general fund or is applied toward something that we jointly support together. Ms. Andrews?
I think this is what you're alluding to, but I would definitely like one of the options that we consider to be that if this property ever ceases to be used as a cooperative nonprofit grocery store for the North Side community, that, and if the county sells it, you know, to a private party for a for-profit use, that the then value of the land come back to the city.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
one more thing, and I don't want to continue to pour salt in the wound, but I'm a little displeased at the sentiments that are being shared this morning, because it's given an option, and we don't have a track record of that, right? So I'll be more specific. Let's talk about Project Grace, right? Does the city and the county both own property downtown for Project Grace?
No. No, sir.
Either you or Mr. Kudre or Tony could answer that question. Either one.
No, sir, we
No,
do
sir.
not, we do not own any property in association with Project Grace.
So so that library or none of that property belonged to us at all.
No, sir.
At no period of time.
I can't speak as no period of time, but I know in the 15 years that I've been here, we have not owned any of it.
Okay. I'll take that. Fine. Then that just negates what I was gonna say. But I am really adamant, and thanks, Charlie, for saying what you said. I want the grocery store. I don't want any other iteration of anything else. I want the grocery store because that's what we agreed upon, and that's what the North Side needs, and that's what the North Side asked us for. So it kind of seems like we're kind of but somebody is trying to wiggle their way out of this into something else, and it just gives me a bad feeling.
Well, as they say in all real estate deals, near the end is what the toughest part of it is. So we're at the very end of this thing, and hopefully we can come up with something that works for us and works for y'all, and the North Side gets a grocery store, and we appreciate all the commitments that everybody has made in trying to make this a reality for the community. So, Chris, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And you've got our commentary as to what we'd like to see, and hopefully we can work something out very quickly.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, I will summarize this discussion with the Board of Commissioners and seek their authorization to find resolution as you all have described and what the city and county attorneys agree to, so that we will have already taken our action.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. Anything else, Mr. Manager?
No, sir.
Okay, anything else?
I'm sorry. I did want to ask, can we get back to the consent agenda? I wanted to ask about the potential purchases of some vehicles.
Okay, let's go to the vehicle, C4.
When we had a presentation from the Clean Energy Group earlier in the year, their annual report indicated that we, the City Council, would receive an update on a plan for transition to an EV fleet within the first, it said early 2024, and we are now outside of Q1, and I wanted to know what the update on that is.
We'll get you an update and have that for you tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Is there any appointment committees or something? Yes, sir. There is an appointments committee right after this particular meeting, right here in this room. Okay, very good. With that, thank you for taking interest. We stand adjourned.